things as we come in. I want to say, first of all, welcome everybody for joining. I'm really grateful to have you here. The reason I'm grateful and the reason I'm doing this is that I consider this my life's work. And what's cool about organizational physics, I still think unique in the world, is that it's a system of thinking. It's a way of looking at people, relationships, situations, companies, and kind of getting a deeper sense of what's really going on there. And I love that. Like I really gravitate towards models and frameworks where I can kind of lay a frame on a situation and go, oh, you know, that's what I should do. And the challenge with that, though, in this world where it's like super hyper low attention span, dancing around one thing to another, is like if you just come across a piece of it, you'll miss the significance. So what I'm trying to do with these master classes is just pick a topic that's kind of up in the air that I'm interested in, and then show how we can use a way of systems thinking to find insights, and then use those insights for our advantage. Right? Could be more time, more energy, more fun, whatever it might be. And in this topic, this class today, I want to focus on co-founder conflicts. And this is a really interesting conversation topic for me because one, I've been in some amazing co-founder relationships, and I've been in some really hard ones. Okay, so I don't have opinions. I have opinions, but I have the experience, right, of when it works and how great and glorious it can be, and when it's not working, how just all consuming it can be and stressful it can be. By joining with me on this class today, I'm going to give you, I hope, like my goal is to give you a clear understanding of like the benefits of these conflicts. Okay, because a healthy relationship is actually one that's rich with conflict. That conflict is constructive, though, right? Like there's two kinds of conflicts. This is a concept I learned from one of my mentors, Ichak Adizes. He would call it constructive conflict is good, and then destructive conflict is bad. And so I want to call out like the constructive or the benefits of constructive conflict with co-founders. I'm gonna kind of give you a framework that there's three types of conflict and how you can use that to decide what do you want to do about a particular situation. And then I want to kind of do some interactive exercises together to kind of like assess specific kind of co-founder conflicts that are coming up and what you might do about them, the best course of action to solve them. And then I have a kind of a surprising method to navigate through co-founder conflicts that I'd like to share with you. And really importantly to me would be if I can personalize this to your individual questions and needs. Okay, so that's a real advantage of being here with me is it's a way to get your individual questions answered. Yeah. So with that as a preamble, I'd like to dive in. Okay. So I guess maybe there's one more thing I want you to know about me is I get really excited. I when I can see principles at work in one place in life and then go across disciplines, across domains and go, "Oh, it's the same." Like I okay, call me weird, but I like I'll take that to town, like, okay, that's some rock solid perspective there. I'm gonna dive in deep. I'm gonna become really proficient at that, maybe even master that, and I'm gonna enjoy the benefits of that. So interestingly enough, for this topic, last year I was diving in deeply to a topic called family constellations. Family constellations. And I want to share a quote with you here from Tolstoy. I'm sure you've all seen this quote, but it's priceless, right? It's like that's what a great quote does. It's so insightful. It's that all happy families are alike, and each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Yeah, and that's really true for co-founder relationships. I'll talk about that. But it's also true for families. And so one of the things I was reflecting on last year was like, okay, well, what are the similarities between a healthy, happy family and a happy, healthy company? And that brought me to this topic called family constellations. I don't know if anybody's ever explored that at all, but it was created by a German fellow named Bert Hellinger. and he's since passed. But he spent a lot of time just kind of doing family therapy and observing. He called it a phenomenological approach of what made some families happy and healthy and others not. And what he came up with was that there's three basic rules. He called them laws of a happy family. And I want to share with those laws with you and then see where it applies and might apply and might not apply to a company and co-founder relationships. Because it's really interesting. So the first law of family constellations is that precedence matters. Precedence matters. Order matters. Hierarchy matters. Okay. So an example in a family would be that the grandparents have precedence before the parents, and the parents have precedence or before the children, and the eldest sibling has precedence before the youngest sibling. Now that I mean, I did probably 60 hours of training on this, but that one like struck me really. It was hard for me to embrace that concept because, like, look in our Western culture, we do everything for our kids. They go on the pedestal and everything's sacrificed there. But in a healthy, uh, uh, happy family, the prior generations need to have their place of precedence or place of priority in the family. Okay. I'm going to
Hmm.
tie that into co founders in a moment. The next thing was about exchange. Like in a happy, healthy family, there needs to be this give and take between the partners, the parents, the children. There's some qualifications there about parents giving to children, but basically, just think about the relationships that are really working well for you. Notice that it's easy to meet their needs in a way that's additive to you. It's easy for you, and they're able to delight you in a way that's like easy for them. It's not all one sided. It's not one partner giving, 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 and the other partner always taking, 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 taking. So there's this balance of exchange that's happening. And the third law was that of it's called belonging, and so what that means is that everybody has a right to belong in the family. Another word is inclusion. So maybe something terrible happened in the past and like a person was ostracized from the family. Well, what happens is if any of those principles are violated, like precedence, exchange, give and take, and belonging, that the whole family system tries to reorganize to compensate in order to try to restore precedence, exchange, and belonging. And all kinds of interesting things will show up. But basically, a happy, healthy family, according to Hellinger, is one that has precedence, belonging, and exchange in the right dynamic. Well, think now with me about a co-founder relationship in a company, or let's actually think about a happy, healthy company. Okay, I have found that the co-founder dynamic has an enormous impact on the whole organization. Enormous. Anybody else seen that in your life, Eric? You seen that? Anyone
Just
else?
a bit.
Yeah. Anyone else want to chime in and kind of like, like just you've seen it, right? Like a co-founder relationships, a huge impact. It's just in my experience, like the parents. If they're happy and harmonious in the family, it's all good. It might not be perfect, but it's all pretty manageable. But if the parental relationship gets out of alignment and frayed, like everybody's suffering. You with me? It seems strange to think of it like that, but in my experience, like the co-founder dynamic is just this over indexed influence on the overall state of the org. Okay. So one thing I've found is that the co-founders, the early employees need to have some precedence in the overall organization. At a minimum, it's like recognizing their early contributions. Okay. No, I get the tension there, right? Like the old guard, did their best, but man, the business has grown and now we need this new class of employee and there's this tension between the old guard and the new guard, yeah? I'm being very sincere. The new guard should honor the contributions of the old guard. I failed at change management so often in my career because I would do this. Like I was just this big innovator type. I'd come in and break glass and let's go. I never once acknowledged the contributions of the past. What an idiot. What an immature idiot. And imagine all the resistance I get to me from the old guard. Like it's like, why would you want to work with me? Come on, you know? Just that subtle shift of like, hey, let's honor the founders here. Let's honor the early contributions. Let's honor what came before us. Really, really important. Because if that goes away, here's the deal: is I've seen that the whole system will try to overcompensate, and everybody will suffer. Anybody
Hmm.
want to chime in on that one?
Makes sense.
We talked about the principle of are you the student or are you the teacher in the moment? And what it's reminding me of, if you're a new person coming in, even as CEO, day one, you are the student and
Yeah,
you get taught by the old guard, and you might grow up and make a bunch of changes. You might grow up very quickly, but on day one, you are the student, and the old guard is the teacher.
yeah.
Listen and respect.
Really good reinforcement there.
Yep.
Other area that gets out of whack is this area of balance. This was where it feels like one partner is over giving. So picture in your mind's eye like a really overworked founder, co-founder, or anyone, and just kind of feel that resentment building in them. And from it might not be
Yeah.
true, but from their vantage point, they're over giving. Over giving, over giving, over giving. They might be really determined, really committed. Like their net worth might be tied up in this thing. Like everybody climb on my back, but that doesn't go on forever before it starts to lead toward burnout, resentment, and this feeling of I'm in overcare. Like there's this distinction between I care and I'm in overcare. I'm over in your business because I don't trust or believe you're going to follow through, and so now I got to do your work too. Just feel that tension in my shoulders when that happens. Yeah. So that's the thing that gets out of whack. Often you'll see it in a co-founder relationship where one co-founder feels like they're carrying the water for their partner. Yeah, might not be true, but they're feeling that way, and we got to come up with some way to help uh, get balance, get the equal exchange going on, and some of that comes from a recognition of what the real exchange is. And I'm going to share with you the process I use to help identify where there's imbalances going on. A little bit here. And then this last one is called belonging. Now, this one is interesting for a business because I don't think it applies. The reason
Hmm.
why is the difference between a company and a family is that a family, everyone has a right to belong, can't be taken away. But in a business, your right to belong is based on your contribution you're able to make for the mission of the business. Yeah. So you could have been a co-founder and you gave a lot. You gave your blood, sweat, and tears to this company, and maybe it's gotten to such a stage where would you all mind going on mute if you're not? 'Cause I'm
We
getting some.
also, I think we also have a question.
Oh, I don't see questions. Ask me the questions in the chat. Thanks, Alexa. Oh, Ashley, you had a question. Thanks.
I did. So I think when we were in the inner MBA, they would address people as friends.
Yeah,
But I've also been in other like certification places,
yeah.
a gaming community that would say, "Hey, fam," and call everyone a family. And it was somebody said to me, if a company calls it family, be ready for toxicity.
Totally.
So I just want to get your take on that since you
Yeah.
do a lot of this stuff, because
Uh,
it's been my experience that that's
It's
held out to be
exactly
true.
it's
Yeah.
exactly right. I think what's happened is, in the longing for family and a longing for belonging, com organizational leaders have misplaced the paradigm, right? Like, "Hey, we're a family here." It's no, you we each have a family that's performs the purpose of a family. Work is where we come to work and express our creative gifts and, generate, value, in return, yeah? And so when I see companies have values like, one family, and it tends to be very superficial but on the surface and very toxic underneath. Yeah, yeah. So I really appreciate you actually asking that question because I don't want anybody participating here or watching this saying that I'm proposing your business acts like a family. I'm just trying to call out there are some interesting cross-disciplinary principles here that would be helpful to be aware of. Okay. So now if someone gave a huge contribution to a company and they no longer have a role to perform, then what we should do is make sure we're following precedents, like honoring their contribution and help, honoring their way out. It's very noble. Make sure that balance of exchange between the organization and that individual leaving is equitable. It's right. Yeah. So don't mix up family belonging and organizational belonging. The organizational belonging, we need to execute the roles so that the business can perform its function, perform its purpose. Any other questions or reactions to these concepts?
I do have something like maybe that's true that belonging in the sense of how Hellinger thought is not necessarily true in a company, but in another way it can be.
Tell me.
Like let's say I've worked with two co-founders, and one of them were pretty dominant in that relationship, and the other felt like that he doesn't have the responsibilities that he wanted to take care of, or he felt like he doesn't belong. So in that sense, it might be if they are not able to fully fill their own place in a company while they are still there.
Yeah. It's a really, really wonderful clarification. So the thing is, we all need to feel like we belong in our organizations that we work. You with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a great, great clarification. The caveat would be that we shouldn't expect that we belong forever,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
But in order to have high performance and engagement, every employee needs to feel like they
Mm,
belong here and express their gifts and talents.
yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that for me.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd like to just kind of keep those principles as background and we'll circle back to them. Right. I just found them really interesting. And now I want to go to more organizational physics elements here. And I'm proposing that there are basically three buckets of conflict that you're going to experience and see in your life. Like think of them as buckets or strata or types of conflict. And the value of having this in your hip pocket, like your mental model toolbox, is like, it doesn't help when you're in an argument, okay, or a fight or in conflict with someone, but it helps tremendously when you have a little bit of space and you can reflect on what's going on. And so what I recommend is if you're having conflict with someone or you're seeing conflict between two people, like you go, what type of conflict is that? Is it a conflict of vision and values? Is it a conflict of interest? Or is it a conflict of styles? Well, if we look hard enough, we might find what seem like some exceptions, but this is a pretty good strata to put these conflicts in. So the first and most extreme, it's red. It's like red light warning, look out, is a conflict of vision and values. So vision is where do we want to be, and values is how do we agree to operate. What are our minimally acceptable behaviors we're going to engage with? So anyone have an example of where there might be a conflict of vision and values between two co-founders that you've seen or could imagine?
Yeah, people-centric people or product-centric? Like, are you focusing on the people or the product?
Yeah. So I might put that down a level in conflict of interest. Okay. But it's a good illustration. So vision and values are like extreme. We're getting a divorce. We're breaking up. We're going to war. Like think about the world around us, like there
Desired growth rates.
uh
Yeah.
yeah, well, between you and your private equity group could definitely end up there. Yeah. Yeah, divided growth rates between the founder, right? One has a vision of a lifestyle business, the other wants to raise a bunch of money and go for it, right? Can they work together? No. You got to end it. That's what I want you to take away. If you're sensing a real conflict of vision and values, I want you to stop all your energy and trying to fix the relationship and put it all into how do you end the partnership gracefully, because you can't incentivize your way or pretend your way past an authentic conflict of vision and values.
Lex, how do you define interest?
Yeah, so let's go down a level now. This next level is yellow. It's like a yellow light. It happens all the time. So conflict of interest is what one side perceives as a benefit to them, they're desirable to them, is seen as a loss to the other side. Okay, so let's use the product and people conflict that Ashley raised. So like imagine like what's good for our people is bad for our product, or bad for our performance, or or vice versa. Or what's good for the kids is bad for the parents. What's good for the shareholders is bad for the employees. What's good for accounting is bad for sales. Anytime there's this sense of like a gain for you is a loss for me. That clear? Okay, now intuitively look at these three levels. How do you best navigate a conflict of interest? It's all the answer's on the screen here.
I
Where
mean,
do you go? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm thinking when there's a lot of, and I guess we've all seen so many of these, but it seems so ego oriented or self oriented when there's interest, because it would seem that if you're really looking at the company from a point of view of the whole,
Yeah.
this kind of disappears if you
Yes.
have the same vision.
Yes. Yes. We go up to that level of shared vision and values. It's exactly the fastest path. As long as there's trust, mutual trust there, respect there, there's this feeling of, hey, we're this thing we're working towards is bigger than our individual needs and interests. And I have this feeling like, okay, I'm going to sacrifice this thing here and give it to you, but I feel like it's going to come back to me. I trust I'm not just giving to a Welch that's going to just keep taking, taking, taking. It's going to like, okay, I built rapport. I'm giving here. I feel like it's coming back. You with me? There's this dance here, and if you, it's why it's so important to have this your shared vision and values laid in and bought in, and it's why we actually date before we marry, right? So imagine you've gone through the last 3 years and you and your spouse don't share the same vision and values and everything from, just picture the world. It's been a crazy world, right? Like if you don't have the same kind of vision and values on what you both hold dear, like that, you're going to have all these interests that are going to kill the marriage. Conflict of interest that'll kill the marriage. If you have shared vision and values, you're still going to have conflicts of interest going on, but you can go up a level to that thing that we love and cherish and hold dear. All right.
Can I? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead, please.
I was gonna. Well, I guess now on time. I was gonna say. I might be jumping ahead, but would you say that the styles of like what our personal conflict styles are kind of the methodology in which we
Yeah.
identify our vision and values and how we realign our interests? If there's kind of like if there's not a melding.
Yeah. So it's a great question. The question was, how do styles influence these things? You know, and I want to say that I'm gonna define our styles, but styles do influence the vision and values that feel resonant. They do influence our interests. And they are a methodology, usually unconscious, for how we've learned to manage the complexities of the world around us. Okay? So style conflict is shows up because I operate in a different way than you do. I might be more like loose with my language and you're more precise. I might be like moving really quickly and you want to slow it down. I might be looking for ways to disrupt the status quo and you might be looking for ways to hold the status quo together. These style conflicts are all around us all the time. And the interesting thing is that how nature designed it is that nature wants around us a complementary set of styles. But we usually don't like the complementary styles. You know, we usually like people who are like us. They see the world the same way we do. They speak at the same pace. We have the same orientation. But two of us, if we're totally same style and same skill set, one of us is not necessary, right? The juice of life of relationship comes in when it's like, no, but you see things differently. Or you have a different approach. You know, and it takes some maturity and wisdom to go. My way is not always right. You know, like it takes some depth and maturity to go. I want a complementary viewpoint around me. I want complementary skill sets and styles around me. I'm going to dive in now mostly to style conflicts because what I'm trying to do is build out a framework, and then I want to do some scenarios and show how this all applies. Okay. Any other questions on these strata of conflict? So the reflection question is, hey, what type of conflict is this? Vision and values, interests, or styles? Okay, now style conflicts arise because we all have finite energy and time. So a style is really mostly an unconscious, energy efficient behavior that we've adopted. It's like how we navigate the world, you know? You guys get that this concept of finite energy and time? Like it's why your business needs sales, it's why you need food, you know? It's why we need stimulation from our friends and family and the environment. It's why our business needs resources. It's just everything has finite energy and time. The deeper you reflect on that concept, the more profound it gets. Basically, uh, though, how we've learned to navigate the world is we have developed these skills or these abilities in organizational physics. We give it a language. You say like, oh, okay, every system has to have a high drive to shape the environment and focus on what's right in front of it. We call it the producing force. So in a business, you'd want to see a high producing force in sales, yeah, in engineering, in anywhere. We actually want a healthy producing force all around because we're executing on the mission. But uh, so that has to be there. But also, we also have to stabilize or systematize how we're bringing order out of this change. You know, constant change. If we don't take time to stabilize and bring some order, life requires order. Yeah, life requires structure. If it's not stabilized enough, it'll quickly fray and fall apart. So those two things have to happen, and they have to happen in the short run every day. But at the same time, the environment's constantly changing. And so there in every healthy system, there's going to also be this innovating force, which is this drive to anticipate the future and invent and procreate and adapt. Yeah, so we should see a high innovating force in like product innovation, R&D, business strategy, business development, and a high unifying force or a unified force is also required in a healthy system because it's what brings bonds, love, teamwork, cohesion. It allows the organism to act as a single organism. So we should see a high unifying force in roles like leadership, like project or product management, working across, bringing different groups together, culture and talent. Yeah, understanding what really motivates people, what makes them tick. So all these forces, notice, just tune in with me. They're in conflict. Like we love an abundance of all of them in the right measure, but that's not how it works. Like if I have a high unifying force, I'm going to be lesser in some of these other areas. Your business as a high producing force right now is probably going to be lacking some innovating and unifying. And these forces show up in our individual styles. Okay. So remember these catchphrase, P.S. I love you. And it's just a recognition that everyone has finite energy and time and they're expressing a certain way. That's their style. And if we can learn to recognize that style, we can help be a better buddy to them. Also, if I am conscious that I'm under a lot of stress, I'm probably going to be exhibiting some aberrant behavior towards my dominant style, and I'll be blind to other things. So you could be a better buddy to me, better coach to me, better mentor to me by like, hey, Lex, you seem to have a really high producing force right now. You know, are you burning me too hard? Have you thought creatively about this situation? Or what? Let's walk in the other shoes. How are they seeing things? Yeah. So I want to empathize. Let's empathize with each other and with the world. Everyone has finite energy and time. We've developed these styles of how we manage the world. No style is perfect for the given situation. Nature wants around you a complement so that the whole system can do these 4 dimensions. If not, you're going to have some aberrant expressions. Let me pause there. And I can do examples of these different styles, but maybe you're all pretty well versed with them. Like, give me some feedback. Do you want more examples of styles in action, or just
I'll
how they show up?
offer up a question here, Lex, which is
Yeah.
you talked about, or your comment was, uh, "Hey, Lex, are you overproducing right now? Are you really heavy on producing?" And so we all know there's a big difference between us coming in open-minded, creative, ready to
Totally.
learn versus wanting to be right, egotistical, scared. We're running out of cash, right? So same person, different scenario.
Yeah.
How do you think about using this framework or a different framework to sort of notice that?
Yeah. So I am going to share one other framework that supports this about the stage of the business and the success of the business has a lot of influence on how people are showing up. Okay.
Hmm.
But setting that aside is when we're under stress and pressure, we'll default to our dominant style unconsciously. You should see my wife Linda and I. Linda couldn't be here today; she's teaching. But if I'm under stress or pressure, I default to producing force. You know, anything that is causing me an energy drain, I'm gonna like attack it and get it off my plate, even if I shouldn't. Linda's dominant style is a stabilizing force, so if she's under stress or pressure, she'll want to slow it down, get her arms around it, get a plan together. You know, take it slowly, step by step. Can you feel our conflict there? Okay. By the way, it's really powerful to teach this concept to your partner who's one in your life because you can just go, we're in a style conflict, you know, and if we both know it, we'll be like, okay, let's step back here. Let's talk this through. All right. So Eric, what I'm trying to say is that we're all shaped by the environments we inhabit. Yes. If I'm in a startup environment or a toxic corporate environment, I'm still expressing these forces, okay? But I might not be expressing them in the way I want to because I'm being you know again shaped by the environments that I inhabit. So let's like I could give other examples, but I'll pause there. Is that making more sense?
It certainly does for me. And there's a simplicity to the way that you describe this relative to other, say, personality profiling techniques, like, say, the Enneagram, where you're moving to different personality types based on your state of mind.
Yeah,
And it gets very complicated and you have to memorize a bunch of stuff.
yeah,
There's a simplicity to this approach that I appreciate.
yeah. Thanks for recognizing that. That was the design. It's like fast-paced environment. Uh, how can I How can I have better outcomes? By one way is to understand the style of myself and others, but also like what style's missing here. Yeah. Um, I usually do this little analogy of like a rowboat in the water and a big producer comes at you and you put them in the boat and say row. So a big producer is just focused on like go, 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 let's go. You know, if you put him or her in the rowboat and say row, what do? They don't ask a lot of questions. Just hit it. You know, you don't have to even worry about them rowing hard. They're going to throw their back into it. You actually have to worry about if they got too far off in the wrong direction. Now, a different style comes at you on the dock. It's a stabilizer style. So they're going to be moving more methodically because they're aware of all the contingencies at play here. They're focused on how do you do things in an efficient way, the right way, without making mistakes and having to repeat the process. So by law, they're going to be more methodical. Put him or her in the rowboat and say, row. What is their reaction? Anybody want to take a shot?
Check everything out before they start rowing.
Yeah, they're going to want to get a plan. They're going to ask you a lot of questions. You're going to want to know the water temperature, the wind currents, all that stuff. They're going to ask you a lot of questions. Now imagine you're their partner or you're in a relationship with them and your producing force is up high. How fun is that conversation? You know? Like you're like, oh my gosh, can't you just row? You know? Like, come on. Right? Now, different style comes at you on the dock. This is the high innovator style, and they like to put their stamp on things. And they're asking like, why not? Why are we doing it this old way? Why don't we do it this new way? How can we make this really cool and fun and innovative and different? Why not? You put him or her in the rowboat and say, row. What? Someone tell me how you think they respond.
They'd put a motor on it.
Yeah. Yeah, put a motor, sail, glass bottom, paint it. Like I really want it to be their own. Yeah. And it's important for a high innovator that they kind of can own the strategy, own the vision, own the expansiveness. If that gets cut off from them, they'll often fight very hard against that, or they'll leave to where they feel like they can express more. And it's easy for them to leave because they see all these things coming together and all this opportunity out there, even if they're mistaken. Last style, unifier style, comes at you on the dock. Now they're like totally in tune with the culture, what's expected. They love to talk about you, not so much about them. You know, who's involved? How do we come together as a team? You put him or her in the rowboat and say, row, what's their response?
Well, they probably want to make sure that the other rowers are not fighting, or that the other rowers are talking to each other, and that everything's going to be fine between all the rowers.
Yeah.
Because we're going in the same direction.
That's right. That's great. And if you put them in the rowboat alone, they'd be like, I need a team around me, you know? So there's all kinds of ways you can use this to like form up project teams, you know? Like if you put together a project team of 4 big producers, you're going to get a very different result than 4 big unifiers. Yeah. But I want to dive in, get almost to the co-founder stuff. I appreciate everyone's patience as I'm kind of laying these basic elements of this framework. I'm sorry, like I said, that's the drawback of organizational physics is you got to lay the framework in, and then it's really easy and insightful. But getting there can be a little time consuming. Sorry, thank you. So what you want to be asking here, what is the dominant style of the co-founders? Now, most of us have one or two, like, you know, and will evolve over time as we age. Some of us have 3, but there's always a trade-off, you know. So if I'm showing up really strong as a producer stabilizer, I'm gonna be weaker in the unifier or innovator by law. And also, I have a report or an assessment on my site called a PSIU style assessment, and what that shows is how I want the style I'm expressing compared to how I want to be expressing. So just tune in with me. Like, let's say that I'm an innovative entrepreneur, but I'm not scaling very easily, and I feel like I'm forced to go do bookkeeping and operational planning. Like you like feel the tension in my heart. Like, oh my gosh, you know. But also, the report also shows something interesting. Like, let's say I'm showing up as a big innovator, and the rest of the organization is like, dude, shut up. You've given us 1,000 things to focus on. We're all distracted. There's no priorities. And you just got to back off for a while so we can get our house in order. Like, I'll be picking up on that unconsciously, you know? Like, I feel like I can't express my innovating gift here. So I'll have an energy drain. I'll have entropy that makes me feel like I don't belong here. Like, I can't get an exchange, and you're not honoring my precedence as the founder. All right, last step before we get to these very interesting exercise. Okay, this is the last thing. This is a map of organizational development, and the top part just shows like the products that you're bringing to market with your company. They go through a series of stages: pilot it, nail it, scale it. If you get there, you milk it, and maybe you sell it off, kill it. And you want to be selling, you want to be piloting your product, early stage prototypes, to kind of very innovative customers. Yeah, makes sense. You want feedback. You want to see if there's excitement, enthusiasm. Are you really are we going to be able to disrupt? You know, and then you're piloting it, and you get feedback, and you start to get some early sales. Now you're nailing it for a different kind of customer. It's called an early adopter, and they have a pain point. They want it solved fast. And you got to then go, and now you're hiring, you're laying in structure and management processes and metrics, and now hopefully you get pulled forward by market demand, and you're really scaling the business. Now it's a different kind of customer. The early majority, they expect a world-class experience. And every organization, unless you do something about it, will age. It'll get over here where things are more stagnant and stable, and maybe you just lose integration with the environment altogether. So I know that's a lot. I'm gonna just kind of just picture this, though, that everything has a life cycle, including a business, including co-founder relationships, and the goal is to get the business into this state of health and maturity where it can launch new business units, new product lines, and that kind of thing. Now, what will happen is, growing a business is hard, but if a company gets out of step with this sequence, it will suffer. Okay, it'll suffer because it's trying to sell to the wrong kind of customers. It'll suffer because it's not executing quickly enough, and the co-founders are feeling that pressure of being out of alignment. And so, like Eric was asking earlier, like, that's a hard environment. How does that reflect? So that will reflect on more conflict between the co-founders. So one of the first things you can do to help solve co-founder conflict is just make sure that the business strategy is aligned with its development stage. Because if they're trying to go off here and their stage is requiring them to be here, like, there has to be shared consciousness that they're doing the wrong thing or the wrong sequence right now. To come together and do the right thing in the right stage in the right sequence, and that tension and conflict has a chance of going down. Might be too late, or there might be other issues, but basically what I'm trying to reinforce here is that if the company's pursuing the wrong strategy, it's going to be entropy, energy drains, conflict for everybody. The wrong strategy, the wrong steps, out of sequence, there will be pain and suffering for everybody. So basically, you're trying to go through these stages I just showed as smoothly, as quickly as you can. But what happens is there's lots of problems that I've written about when you try to skip a stage. And so if the co-founders are involved in skipping a stage, like they just lack this awareness, there's going to be a lot of conflict and a lot of suffering. Okay, now here's where I wanted to do today. Let's talk through some scenarios now that I've laid in this framework. We have two co-founders. Okay, one is on the business side. One is on the, which could be, you could think of that as sales, finance, marketing, business development. The other co-founder is on the operational side, tech side, delivery side. This founder is entrepreneurial style, producer, innovator. This co-founder is also entrepreneurial style. Their business is down here in the piloted stage. If you were to guess, okay, I'm throwing some advanced questions at you right away, but would you guess, is this partnership set up for success at this stage? Can these two co-founders be successful with this style and complementary? They're not complementary styles; they have complementary interests, though. Yeah, one on the business side, one on the tech side. Let's assume they're both talented. They're both entrepreneurial. They're in a piloted stage environment where they're trying to be disruptive and figure it out. Should they be getting along pretty well?
I would say no.
Okay, how come?
They'll be in conflict
Why?
because they have the same entrepreneurial.
Yeah. So it's good. It's a good assessment. What I've seen, and we got to think about the stage that's required here too, is at this stage, we want and need just high innovation. We don't even really know what business model we're pursuing yet.
Okay.
We have a business side savvy person and a tech side savvy person. And at this stage, because they have different areas to explore, conflict it could work pretty well. The conflict might show up if the tech side feels like they have a better innovating sense than the business or product side.
That makes sense.
Okay. So a lot depends on the mutual trust, the collaboration, the history of these two. But if we go up, now I'm going up the development stage, so now I'm kind of into nail it. And now you're going to see more conflict because there's not a stabilizing force here. That's what's required now here. See this? There's not a stabilizing force really strong and present that's allowing these guys to systematize how they sell, service, and deliver. And so the conflict's going to show up because they had sales but now they got product errors and support issues and onboarding is hard and customers are upset. You feel the tension arising. So the tech side is going to be looking at the business side like, you got to fix this. And the business side is going to be like, I'm trying to fix it, but you got to bring more stability to the product. Okay, so that tension's gonna build up, and the solution is to help them bring in a light stabilizing force, right? So they can focus on the real priorities, systematize how the business is selling, servicing, and delivering, and then everything will be manageable, assuming there's market demand. Remember, the goal is to get up to here to be able to launch new products, new business units, whatever, but you don't want to do that too early. That will often happen in a company structure with these kind of co-founders, is they'll presuppose demand and they'll try to spin out the next product line too soon. It's like having a teen pregnancy. Like the mothership isn't capable enough of launching multiple kids. Like we got to get the first kid off into college and then we can start to do this again. Now, what about a scenario where you have two business sales founders? They're both in the same side of the business, but they don't really complement each other on skill set. I've actually surprisingly seen this a lot, and the solution's been really interesting. Sorry, I got a dry throat. Uh, Here, what happens is there's more uncomfortable tension between these two at this stage. But if it's like a services business, it doesn't have a big product or technology play, they probably can find early sales just through hustle and charisma. But what happens is one of them starts to try to exert more innovating force in kind of ownership. And the other, usually there's one of these with more of a unifying wing. They'll kind of acquiesce, like, okay, so and so's in charge. I'll try to fill the void here. You know, be more of a integrator who kind of brings things together. But what I've seen happen is, in reality, what happens is they're able to get through kind of the nail it stage, and then this partner will go off and do something else. Often if they have a good relationship and trust together, this blue will go off and launch a complementary business unit. Different brand, different company. They keep their friendship high, you know? But it was so uncomfortable being in that setting together, like two innovating forces that couldn't really freely express. Conflict of interest going on all the time. Conflict of similar styles here going on. That the blue just goes off and like does another business. And if the relationship was strong, they'll do it within under the same ownership umbrella. But now notice, like each partner's got an avenue or a playground to move forward. I've seen that happen like 5 times. Interestingly, let's do another scenario. Like you would think the perfect scenario would be we have a blue kind of producer, innovator, unifier, but this we go back to tech and ops. We say, well, we need to complement this person with a stabilizer unifier style. So we have blue biz is like entrepreneurial. They've got a partner who can catch that and orchestrate it into product and deliverables. That feels ideal, right? Okay, in your experience, what happens in this kind of setting? Let me hear from some people. I have an ideal scenario here on paper. Why doesn't it work?
There's nothing being shared, or like no similarities so that they can have common ground.
I'm not able to show common ground here, but let's assume they have shared vision, values, and good
Okay.
working relationship. Yeah.
The business and salesperson can't really do anything until the tech and ops person gets something done.
Exactly.
Move faster.
They're
Move
frustrated.
faster.
Okay. And then right back at you, this guy's making it up, or the person's making it up as they go along. They don't know. Okay. They act like they know. They don't know. No one's done this before in a startup. Yeah. And so this individual's over here like, yeah. So tell me what's going to happen again, right? Like, if you could just give us a clear plan and path, then we can execute faster, but you're not, And so these two kind of drag each other down. Not all the time, but that would be why this partnership fails. Okay. No, there's another interesting scenario that happens in co-founder conflicts as they're growing, and it usually shows up right at about the nail it stage, right between nail it and scale it. So they've somehow figured things out together to get the business up to here. And one of them is clearly in the CEO role. But what's happened is the other one has filled in all the gaps. Okay, usually the one again with the higher unifier style, a little bit more stabilizing style, has acquiesced and tried to fill in all the gaps. Now, I've seen this a lot. A company will reach out to me with help in this scenario. Okay, and both the CEO and their right hand are questioning if there's really still a role for the right hand. Do they still belong? Do they still have a chance to belong here? And I'm always surprised that the right hand seems very objective about it. Like I'm always hear this. Yeah, well, maybe there's not a role for me here anymore. Let's see. I want the business to be successful. That's what I want the most. Okay. The hilarious thing is that I'll take the company through my program, and part of that program is we define strategy for this next stage very clearly. What are the priorities? And then we'll design a structure for that strategy without people, no people. Okay. So now we have clear articulation of the mission, the strategy. What are we trying to do and why for this stage of development? Then a clean new structure to support that strategy without any names, no inertia. Okay, fresh look. And then we get that design right. This is hilarious. We'll add back in the current team. What happens is this right hand who felt like they might not have a role. Guess how many hats they're wearing? They're wearing like 6 or 7 hats in major functions of the business. It's hilarious. Okay? They feel like they're failing. The CEO feels like they're failing. And the reason they're failing is they're trying to do 17 different things every day. And guess what? There's no way they're going to go and hire 7 people overnight. So this right hand has plenty of work to do. And what we usually do is put him or her into the role that they're like best suited for and fill in the gaps around him or her. So that is my interesting way to solve co-founder conflicts. It ties to, and I'm almost going to wrap up here, but every organization has mass. Okay, mass is inertia. It's resistance to change. And so the way to take what are salvageable co-founder conflicts and make them more harmonious is to set the relationship aside. Say, okay, for this business, what's its next stage strategy need to be? What are the good parts of the culture? And let's take the existing team and work with them. But the highest leverage here to reduce co-founder conflict and actually accelerate the whole business is to work at the levels of structure and process. I just described part of that, like design the structure for the strategy without people, and then you put people back into roles in the structure where they can belong clearly, that match their style, match their interests, match their capabilities. You probably need to make a couple hires. But then you implement a team-based decision-making process so that a lot of conflicts emerge between founders. Like Ashley, I think, was saying this earlier, like the tech side doesn't know what the business side is doing, or the business side is frustrated because they don't know what the tech side is doing. So you resolve those conflicts that come up from a breakdown of communication by getting the critical mass of leaders around the same table to understand what's happening in product and tech, what's happening in the business. So there's shared consciousness, there's alignment. And the funny thing is, you can take a pretty extreme co-founder conflict, do those processes, get them around the table with the rest of the team, and the light bulb will start to go on. You know, the light bulb usually goes on with like, oh, okay, we have a real shot with this business. Let's get back after it. Light bulb might also go off that like, or on that like, hey, one of the co-founders just isn't a fit here anymore. They don't. There's no real place for them to belong. I rarely ever see that, but it could happen. But in this case, now you can have a graceful exit, right? Maybe they want to sell their shares back. We can honor their precedents. We can make a mutually beneficial exchange, right? Help them find belonging in the next stage of their life. So, from a systems view, if you can come down and work at that level of like the environment, structure and process, you can create a lot of leverage and resolve a lot of conflicts by just reorganizing, like redesigning the overall environment. Now, there's a situation when this doesn't work. Anyone tell me what that might be? When doesn't this approach work? My wife Lena told me I needed to pause more for let people think and answer the question. So I'm going to take her advice. When doesn't this overall approach work? Remember for the 3 sources of conflict?
When you're not aligned on the vision and values.
Yeah, that's a real crisis conflict. Okay, there's true misalignment of vision and values. Like one partner stolen. There's just a breakdown in trust. They're not able to communicate or trust one another, or even have disrespect for each other. Like it's going to be hard to salvage that. So you want to be preemptive here on a good thing, and try to avoid those conflicts of vision and values. Anyway, that ended up being a lot of content, and I'll send you the recording. But things you can do, I put together some helpful links here and some notes on this topic that you can review at your convenience. I'll put it here in the chat window. And it looks like this page here. So I just kind of captured the main themes for you, including the reflection questions. And if you want to go deeper into this concepts, I have a couple ideas. One is I'm starting a management certification program. It's an 8-week program called the 8-week shift. And you can click on this link and see the agenda. You can even get the curriculum. It's going to be really transformative program where we actually talk about just like one of these concepts and then really anchor it in and then we go to the next. And there's a lot of other things in there we'll be covering. You should check out the agenda if you might be interested. If you're an expansion stage company, like my genius is coaching with CEOs and their right hand to kind of design this business for the next stage of growth and do it quickly. If you kind of like this concept of PSIU assessments, then take one, right? See what it's like, send it to your team, use it for new hires. That's here. And then we have tools, a couple tools I might recommend here. If you had co-founders who were in conflict, I might sign up for the free 30-day trial of the Pro Tools and do a entropy survey with the leadership group. And what that will show is where there's conflict emerging, energy loss occurring across the organization. So sometimes if co-founders can see it visibly, like they're like, oh, we got to do something about that. So it'll show you a map of where the biggest sources of conflict, energy loss, entropy are showing up in the business. And then the other one I would take would be the top level OKR survey. That will show you your life cycle stage of the business, as well as the type and level of execution risk. Like, are you out of alignment or in alignment on your strategy, which I believe is the most important thing. And if you want to continue with the membership, there's a code here you can use. Okay, I really, really appreciate you guys taking the time on your Saturday to join me. Any final questions?
What kind of a spin does it put on co-founders when it's tri-founders? There's three of them.
I considered trying to talk through that, and it just seemed like so
It just would probably make it complex.
to talk through. Same principles, but another level of complexity. It's a good question. All right.
I have to say that I see this for business, but I see it so much in relationships, especially where couples are. There's so much information that can be applied to other aspects besides business, and I think it's brilliant.
I think it really comes alive at the relationship level. Like, I honestly, this is my career, but I probably have as much value just having this shared language with Linda, my wife.
Yep.
And even my kids.
Yes.
A really valuable way to get down to the essence of it.
Yeah. So I see it going beyond just applying to growing businesses. I think everybody could benefit from it. So thank you for a great job.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate everybody attending. There's a doc here with the recap, and thank you.
Lex, can I ask you one more question?
Yeah.
How is AI influencing your work? And how do you think that's spinning up the different types? Yeah, like for producing and innovating.
Yeah. I think so I want to answer that on two levels if I could.
Yeah.
That's how it's influencing my work, and then what I'm seeing in my clients or in the world in general, maybe. So how it influences my work is I pulled I was one of the very early adopter. I had an AI chatbot on my site called Ask Lex. And man, I don't know, I probably got through Chat GPT 4.0, not 1.0, but it was so authoritatively wrong. I had to pull it. Like, people go in there and ask it questions, and it would just give this authoritative wrong response. I was like, come on. I train it. It was just frustrating. Also, I like to teach. I like to engage, and so I felt like I was cutting myself off from like questions I'd be happy to answer myself, if that makes any sense. And then, like, I've made this image with AI, and I'll sometimes ask AI a better way to write something. That's the extent of my use with it. And also in our Pro Tools, we have an AI summary generator. So you do an entropy survey with your team, you press the button, it'll summarize the categories based on all the team responses. And I think you got to be careful. Like, you still got to review that stuff and make sure it's really capturing the essence. But it's a pretty good start. Okay. Now, what I think is going to happen in the world is that it's going to seem like these things don't matter. as much. Like structure doesn't matter as much. Decision-making processes don't matter as much because it's going to be a bunch of AI agents doing all the work. And I think what's actually going to happen is that poorly designed companies are going to like perpetuate their mistakes faster with AI. But that a well-designed, well-led organization that works for everyone is going to like use AI as it probably should be as like a producing. Uh, I think if you look at the four forces, I would put AI in the uh, like it's generating a lot of. It's able to process a lot quickly. Yeah, and maybe it feels like it gives you some creative insights, but different departments will use that for their area, but it still has to come together as a human-based leadership team that needs the right structure, that needs the right strategy, that needs the right decision-making processes for it all to kind of work well together. That's my view. What's yours?
I don't know. I was just kind of curious. I think it depends on what you're using it for. I've been playing around with it. There's actually a tool to like create a program. We were playing with it to create like a fitness program, but it
Yeah,
wasn't very intuitive to input the information.
yeah,
So I don't even know what it's going to spit out yet. That's just kind of a step up. I use ChatGPT daily. I've created images and then I've watched stuff be created like through Midjourney. So I
yeah,
would see it. I guess my experience has been more in the innovation area
yeah,
of it. But I
yeah.
could see how it could help, get more production done. So I was just curious.
That's the big promise. Everybody's waiting to see. Okay,
Let's.
yes,
Sorry, we lost my voice.
I was
Uh,
losing you.
how do you think about uh, principles, really documented principles, say Ray Dalio style,
Hmm.
of getting really deep case studies, etc.?
Ask me in a different way, Eric. I don't understand.
Do you uh, you talked about decision making just
Hmm.
earlier,
Yeah,
and Ray Dalio would say, "Hey, look, principles are concepts to be applied over and over again, so that we can have more consistent decision making
yeah,
across an organization."
yeah.
And do you buy into that? Do you help companies build principles?
I do buy into that. And the thing about like principles based thinking is you got to master the principles.
Hmm.
It's not natural to think that way or make decisions that way. So it takes discipline and training and desire. Yeah. Um, the what I teach in my consulting work is this process called SET, or Strategic Execution Team. We use software, and it's built from the structure where everybody has a role to play, and then they represent that role. And we have different classes of decision because we don't want to treat all the decisions the same. So that if it's a big strategic decision, it's going to get worked by this team, but not as a democracy. What we do is we have the implementer own the decision. So the person who's accountable
Mm.
for the implementation owns the decision. They accept or reject the decision. And then, because it's a big strategic decision, those are few and far between. So they're written up. It's a six or page or under proposal, kind of like Amazon. Uh, what I found is because every industry is different, but if you can get the structure of a good team-based decision-making process in place,
Hmm.
you'll solve a lot of problems and bring the team together. But if you lack that process for team-based decision-making, you'll have a lot of one-off individual decision-making and no cohesion. What's your experience?
That resonates. There's a lot of top-down systems and framework to put in place that
Yeah,
reduce drama or
yeah,
entropy in an organization,
yeah.
reduce probably the need to even think about bottoms up, maybe, or decision making and principles. Is you know
Well,
one way of describing what I'm hearing from
yeah,
you.
it's going to be really interesting to watch what happens because if you think of an AI driven world, then we're going to have AI bosses, for lack of a better word, pretty soon, if not already, dictating down what the agents, those agents might be software, they might be humans, need to do in sequence.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes back to like I believe in hierarchy only for the reason of pushing authority deep. Hierarchy is conflated with top-down centralized control, and like unfortunately, we're not wise enough yet as a species to like prevent that from happening. So I expect a lot of disasters of that kind of top-down
Mm-hmm.
dictation. So hopefully I can have enough of the Rebel Alliance working with me to keep the good fight going, where we empower humans and push authority deep. Anyway, appreciate everybody a lot. Thanks. I'll have another topic, another call next or the second Saturday of February, and I'll put that together and we'll announce it. So I hope to see you back. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lex.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lex.